Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I did want to actually try precision landing this thing, and we're in the standard cheat orbit at this point just for time's sake, and I've been trying out different altitudes to target here. This is 30 kilometers, and we are going to be targeting around 30 kilometers here. And I'm just targeting like halfway in between here, right? And I want to move this just a smidge to about here. So halfway between these two like continental areas is what we're targeting. And we're just going to try to land on the actual runway. We'll see how this works. I tried 20 kilometers and that was too low. We undershot. I tried 40 kilometers. That was too high. We didn't overshoot. We actually still undershot, but it was because we ended up losing attitude because I was doing too extreme of maneuvers to drop our speed. So we know that we have about a 45-degree margin in our maneuverability, so we'll have to be careful about that. It's going to be a pretty small burn here, so I'm not going to throttle this all the way up. I did make one small change to the shuttle, and we'll go over that after this burn. So let's get this done. So we're just going to bring this right on down. Cool. Right about here should be fine. Yeah, that's okay. So no problem whatsoever there. We're going to go to horizontal velocity up, and I want to talk about the small change that I made here. So as soon as we get loaded in, there we go. We've got our fuel drain valve here, and we've got a second fuel drain valve here. The point behind that is to just offset the thrust so that it doesn't actually affect our orbit in any way. And that is indeed exactly what it does. So we're going to get these draining just like so, and we can see it doesn't affect our orbit at all. They cancel each other out, and that is perfect. So we're going to get that right on out of here, and then we're going to head on in. So at this point, we are ready to go. We no longer need these pinned open, and let's bring this right on down. So 40 was too much, 20 was too little. Hopefully 30 will be just right. We'll see how that goes. Inward we go. We do eat up that periapsis height margin fairly quickly, but like I said, we were about 20 kilometers up when we were passing very close to the KSC. We weren't quite over it yet, but we were very close to the KSC, so we were too high. I gotta feel out how this goes. This thing has a lot of drag to it, and it's just a matter of feeling out where we need to be, right? So that's the idea here. We're just going to glide on through. We've already eaten up 5 kilometers of margin, but the majority of our slowdown happens lower down, right? At this point, we're technically still increasing in speed. So there's that. And the fact that this is a completely unpowered glider means that we have to get ourselves at least close enough in the vicinity, because we are not going to be going anywhere meaningful. We're going where we're going, and that's about all there is to it. So we can see here our margin is now gone, and this is coming on in. So we'll see if this is enough margin. I'm hopeful, but it might need to be 35. If it does, we can revert this and try again at 35. We'll see. So in we come. We're just gliding it out for now until we get a little closer. We need to get close enough to this thing, like I said. And we can see right now it's crossing over this mountain range. I think 30 might be undershooting it, which is exciting. No doubt about that. Of course, this is going to change somewhat based on our altitude. Like our apoapsis of this dive into the atmosphere is going to change our approach characteristics. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, this is too low, I think. We're losing a lot of horizontal speed at this point. So I think we do need to try 35. That was a lot, but that is, of course, because of physics warp. Okay, so we bring this around here. There's no way that we glide all the way over this continent at this point. I think that's pretty clear. So let's revert this right on back to launch. Let's try it again at 35. We're getting very, very, very close here. We just got to dial this in. I also want to make this be like a standardized apoapsis number so that we know what we need to be at for this re-entry to work. for us to be able to nail it every time. I want to be able to do that, so that means that we should be targeting probably not this semi-major axis. Okay, if we set this, things go a little bit weird here, so we need to do that, then we do again, and we're not actually in orbit right now, but I'm going to just detach these. So we decouple that, and we set orbit again, and now we're properly in orbit. So this is a like 86,750 meter orbit, right? And I mean, it's not going to be a huge amount of difference. I guess we can just say this is an 85-ish kilometer orbit. That would work. So we need to add a maneuver sometime around here-ish. And we're going to this time be targeting 35 kilometers. 30 was definitely too low. 40 is too high. So we're dialing this in. Hopefully, this will be just right at 35. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. So we're going to warp around. We should definitely activate our engines. That would be helpful. As soon as we're out of this warp. Okay. Activating the engines, but we're not throttled up yet. So that's fine. We're going to warp on forward here 50 seconds. Okay, let's do it this way. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. We don't need a huge burn here, but that'll do. Yep, that's good enough. We're going to take this around to horizontal velocity up and drain out our fuel. Okay. So we'll pin this open, and we'll pin this guy open. Phenomenal. And we should probably have these be set from the launch facility, but that's fine. And let's get these drained. Cool. So we're not going to be changing our orbit at all from that drain. I do want to rotate us around to about here. There we go. Yep, all looks good. And let's warp on in. So let's see how this one goes. Hopefully 35 is about right. I've tried 0, I've tried 20, I've tried 40, we've tried 30 just now, and now we're going to try 35. We now know that it's within 10 kilometers, right? 40 was definitely too much, I can tell you that right now. We just experienced 30 and determined that to be too little. So now we'll find out which bound changes here. Is 34 too little, or is it too much, or is it just right? We'll see. We, of course, need to warp our way on through here. And let's see how this goes. So that does give us an extra 5 kilometers of margin. And that does mean that we're going to stay in the upper atmosphere for that much longer. So that means that we get a fair amount of additional speed. Now, one thing we definitely could do is come to like right here and then burn off most of our horizontal speed without draining the fuel. That's a terrible way to do it. I don't want to do it that way. We have burned through 5 kilometers of our margin thus far. So this is where we were at when we started the previous attempt. We're definitely a lot further along here, so that is a good sign. We're down another 5 kilometers now. That'll just go faster and faster and faster as we get lower and bleed off more speed. This thing has a crazy amount of drag. I want to be clear about that. It's an insane amount of drag that this space shuttle has. But let's bring this on down. We're out of margin as of now. So we'll see how that goes. We can see we are on an impact trajectory, and it is moving closer and closer to the KSC. But it might be... We're definitely doing better than last time. This is definitely an improvement. The question is it good enough for a precision-ish landing? It's going to be close, but I feel like maybe we need a little bit more margin. We'll see how it goes. We're cruising over the mountains now. The KSC is currently visible, so that's good. We're still 20 kilometers up, but we are losing a lot of speed at this moment. This is looking okay, though. Let's take it out of physics warp. I want to fix our rotation here. And I also want to try to fix our heading a little bit. Our heading's a little off. But we need to be pretty careful here. It is possible still to... Oh, we're trying to go back to horizontal velocity up. No wonder. It is still possible to lose attitude if we maneuver a little bit too harshly. So I want to pull us over this direction ever so gently. If we can do that. We're still moving a little quickly for these maneuvers. But we are heading this way now. We can see we're about 12 kilometers up, and I think we're on a decent trajectory here, all things considered. Decent. I want to roll us over this way a little bit. If we can hold that roll attitude, that would be nice. And I want to pull us up. Ooh, okay. We really don't like holding that attitude. Gotcha. Well, let's bring this right on back down. We managed to get that back under control. That was exciting. And let's toggle our landing gear. Okay. We really don't like moving around right now. Gotcha. I think a lot of this is due to how slow we're moving. So we're entering a dive right now. We want to lose altitude and gain speed at this moment. And we're going to come out of this dive. We're a little bit off on our angling, I feel like. And I would like to do something about that. So we're going to pull up out of this dive fairly soon. But not quite yet. I want more speed for the moment. We're still dropping our speed, actually. Yeah, we're dropping speed at this moment. That's kind of exciting. Okay, let's try bringing ourselves up out of this dive. A little bit. Okay, we've managed to change our directionality. That's good. We're going to have to change it again, though. So we're going to need to bring this around and bring it back up here. Can you not just snap back, please? Thank you. Okay, we're going to bring this on over to here for now. We're moving very, very slowly at this moment. I really don't like what we've got going on with our roll right now. Our roll is not holding very steady, but I want to bring us back up over this way. And at this moment, we're just going back to horizontal velocity up. And we're just looking to bring this in as much as we can. Now, our horizontal speed is still dropping. We're probably going to need to dive again in order to get some speed to convert over, which is fine. We're just going to go into kill rot for right now. And we're building up some speed here. Once we are about, I don't know, maybe like 750 kilometers up, we'll try to pull out of this dive. Maybe we should do it a little sooner than that. Okay, we should be in radar mode for sure. Okay, let's pull up out of the dive and convert this over into horizontal speed. Okay. We're definitely a little bit off on our heading, but this is very, very close. This is exceptionally close. If we don't have our brakes on, we might be able to roll over to where we need to be. Hilariously. Okay. I don't want to hit that tree. It would be ideal not to. We definitely need to be nose up right now. This is exceptionally close to where we want to be. Okay, brakes are not on at the moment, and that is, of course, deliberate. We're trying to see how close we can get this. Although we probably don't want to, like, get... Well, if we got air off of that, it shouldn't be a big deal, right? I'm going to turn our kill rot off for the moment. Are these motorized? Are these wheels motorized in any meaningful way? I don't think so. I think they are just landing gear. Yeah, that's correct. So we do see that we could steer it a little bit over this way, right? A little bit. We can kind of steer it. So we were definitely a little bit short there, but not by a huge amount, to be honest. And we didn't need the parachutes for the landing, but they're there just in case. I'm wondering if we're going to make it onto the runway. This is not how we intended to get to the runway, to be clear. But we're getting really, really close here. We've definitely rolled a nice long ways. Okay. I think we're going to make it. Runway's right there. Do we make it up onto the runway, though? That's definitely a question. We're climbing. We're no longer climbing. Well, this was definitely not exactly how this was intended to be done. But I think it proves a point. And that point is that we can do it with a little bit of practice. And there we go. We are officially on the runway. Let's use our parachutes. Wonderful. Do the parachutes actually do anything at this speed? I mean, yeah, but not much. The brakes are honestly intended to take over from here. So I'll turn the brakes on, and there we go. We ended on the runway. Even if we didn't land on the runway, we ended on the runway. That's close enough. With a little bit of practice, I think we can get there. Wonderful. So I'm going to call that good. We'll recover that vessel. We're not reverting that one. So that'll be absolutely fine. Now the real question is, how are we going to go about constructing the next bit here, right? Because what we need to do next, now that we have an operational shuttle, mostly operational shuttle, what we need now is to start getting the ISS built. Now I'm going to mark off the space shuttle on the list here, and the ISS is going to be an interesting thing to do. We'll have to see how that's going to end up working. So I do need to do a little bit of research into our first component for the ISS and into its orbit, inclination, things like that. That's going to be a little bit important here to figure out. So I will be back in just a moment. See you guys then. Okay, so I've done a little bit of research here, and it looks like the first module that we need to lift off launches from a Proton rocket, and it is the Zarya module. Now, this thing has 3 total docking ports on it. It's got one here, it's got one here, and it's got one on the back end here. So that's going to definitely be an interesting way to go about things. This is a photo of the actual module. So that's great, and we can definitely base a lot off of that. It looks like this is going to be a fairly simple module. What does this actually have in it? The functional cargo block. So it provided electrical power, storage, propulsion, and guidance to the ISS during the initial stage of assembly. Now it's used primarily for storage, but sure, we can definitely do that. So let's hop on back over to the VAB, and a real quick tweak I want to make here in the VAB while I'm thinking about it to the space shuttle is that I want to grab those what's the term? Drain valves. And I want to make sure that this is set to yes, yes, and vessel. I want to do that on both of these. So we're going to get both of those set up. So yes, yes, and vessel. Okay, it automatically did that. Perfect. We'll save that, and we'll need to open up our Proton rocket, which, did we actually name that Proton? We did. Okay, cool. So here's our Proton rocket, and we don't actually have anything inside of it as of now. So let's delete this fairing for the time being, and we're going to start building something in here. So first things first, we know we're going to need another one of these docking ports. So we'll flip that right on around, and we'll just dock these together for the time being. Next, we know we're going to need a fairly wide base here. I'm going to use an adapter for that, so we're going to have... that feels a little tall for what I'm looking for. That feels a little big overall. This is a little small. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we want to go for, like, one of these adapters. That could definitely work. And now we know there's a lot of storage and power, attitude control, and thrust that happens here. So I'm going to put in a small fuel tank here. Not this one. That one's way too big. We're going to do a small fuel tank here. This is going to be like a... simply like an FL200 or a 100 even? No, this is going to be an FLTX size, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So something along the lines of this. A small tank there. Now I'm going to put in an RCS tank here. Something like that. Then I want to put in a service module here. So we would put in a payload. So we would do a relatively large service module. Something kind of like that. And then I'm just looking at the size of the thing. It's got some like radiators attached to it. Okay, does it taper down? Maybe a little bit. Okay, noted. So I think we're going to do a second service module here. I want to put some batteries in here for sure. So we're going to place some battery packs inside of these service modules. So I'm going to put one here and one here. Possibly one on the far side as well. No, that'll do for now. So we'll shroud those. And yeah, those are shelf variants, which will be okay. And then we do want to put some photovoltaic panels on here. So those would go somewhere like here. Okay? They don't need to be absolutely enormous gigantors. We'll get to those. We will definitely have gigantors on here. Now we're going to need another adapter bringing this down. I don't know if it needs to go to that size. Let's see. So we would need to go into our structural, and we would need, at this point, probably not a micronode. I think a modular girder hub. I think this size is okay, but I'd kind of like to make it be a slightly larger adapter size. I think that's reasonable. So that gives us a little bit of extra fuel here as well. Sounds good. So we've already got this docking port here. Then we're going to need 2 total docking ports up here. It's a little strange that there's only 2 docking ports, but there's one that goes here, and then one that goes... I'm wondering how it's aligned with respect to the solar panels. Let's see if we can see it in one of these photos here. So looking at this photo that we looked at previously, it's definitely not here. We see a docking port here. I do not see a docking port in line necessarily, because these are the same, right? So if they're the same, then they can't have one side be a docking port and one side not being a docking port. So that means that the opposite invisible side here must have the docking port. So that would mean it would go here, but on the far side. So opposite of the solar panels. So it would end up going here, like that. Okay, cool. So that'll work. I do want to put in some RCS on here. So we put in some of that. I'm also going to put in some thermal control panels on here because it looks like there are some in the reference images. So we're going to put in a pair of them here, and then an additional pair, maybe a smaller pair, up here. Something kind of like that for now. Okay, cool. That'll do. Now, this thing should not be quite so white. It's extremely white, for sure. I don't think there's anything we can really do about that, though. I mean, we could have this be metal, and that's fine. We want this to be like a kind of metal soil-y look, or foil-y look, right? Like a gold foil underneath. But we don't have access to something like that in KSP1 without mods anyway. So we can't really do that. So looking at the rest of this, I'm going to put some thrusters on here. I don't really love necessarily the way this adapter is shaped. I feel like we need a smaller adapter here, but one that's slightly taller. I'm going to go adapter shopping here. I wouldn't mind something along the lines of this, necessarily. I think that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. We could definitely make these be black and white to break it up a little bit, add some visual interest. I think that's absolutely fine. Okay, does this have an antenna on it? It probably does. And we need a way for it to control itself. So let's put on, for now, something along the lines of a Probodobodine Octo 2. There. Something like that. So it doesn't have a reaction wheel. We would like to have it have a reaction wheel. So we'll put a standard-sized reaction wheel on here. That's a small inline. I want an advanced inline stabilizer. Okay. So something along the lines of this. And this will, of course, be the Zarya module, which, for the record, Zarya was originally intended as a module for the Mir station. But that didn't end up happening. So we'll call this Zarya, and we're going to save this, and we're going to retract these solar panels. I do want to add in some strutting over here. Struts would be very, very useful here. Something along the lines of that. And then we'll put in our fairing. So the fairing would need to be, like, at least out to here. I want to go up a bit, but apparently we can't. We'll just rotate the camera in order to do that. And we'll just do the fairing something like that. Okay, cool. Now, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to consider this still part of the shuttle program for our, like, thumbnail work. But next episode, we're going to start the actual construction of the ISS with our very first module here. We don't actually have thrusters on it. That's something we should fix. No doubt about that. I'm going to forget that, aren't I? Let's put a couple of twitches on here. They're going to go... Where would they go? If we put them here, they're slightly offset in their angling, which is, you know, awkward, and they're also dangling out. If we put them here, they might overheat this fuel tank, which wouldn't be ideal. Maybe we should just put them, like, here and move these guys up a bit. Kind of like that. I guess that could work. And the radiator panels might cool this fuel tank adapter. I don't know. We'll have to see if that's a problem. For now, though, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And next episode, we're going to launch this thing and put it into its correct inclination. And that'll be great. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.